What's good, party people? You join me with my breakfast shake. I'll share the recipe with this with you one day. It's absolutely gorgeous. It tastes like chocolate milk, and there's about 40 grams of protein in it, and nothing bad whatsoever. So it's completely guilt-free chocolate milkshake with lots of carbs. So today, what I want to talk about is being aware of who you spend your time with and how you become the average of the 5 biggest influencers slash the most time spent consuming what they've got, being in their energy. And I'll expand on this. And I'm not going to edit this out, so you're just going to have to sit and watch me. There's dates in it. So you get like little chewy pieces of caramel kind of thing inside it. It's fucking gorgeous. So everyone knows, or if you don't know, you become the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And I think that realizing that, first and foremost, and as always, taking a step back and kind of seeing, the people who you spend the most time with right now, that could be your parents, it could be siblings, it could be your partner, it could be your kids, it could be somebody that you work with really closely, it could be people that you don't particularly like, it could be when you look at them objectively, do you want to become more like this person? And I think that's what I'm going to really try and hammer home here, is that if you are on any kind of journey of improving yourself, trying to grow, learn, get better mentally, get better emotionally, level yourself, calm yourself, grow, or if you want to get better physically, financially, understand that the types of conversations that you're having and the mindset of the people that you spend the most time listening to is where your mind is going to start to go. It's what you are going to start to align yourself with, because it's like a thermostat. If you hang around with people who are talking about healthy food and they're having shakes that they make themselves and they do meal preps and they only have like pizza or cake on a really rare occasion, you will naturally start doing that. Same as if you're around people who are interested in money and they want to have a business and they don't spend on things that you don't need, you will probably become a little bit more conscious on what you spend your money on. And what it comes back to is, back when we were hunter-gatherers, we would live in tribes of, between, I think, between 30 and 150 people. I think somewhere in that ballpark, that would be like our tribe, and then we would have smaller groups inside those groups. You naturally, or you had to fit in with that group, because if you didn't, then you would be an outcast. And back in those days, being an outcast of that really small group meant that you would probably die, because you didn't have somebody to do this and somebody to do that and somebody to look after the kids and somebody to go hunting, and this person's good with medicine and this person's good with where to go look for these kind of berries that you can only get in the parts of the summer, and this person knows where the water is. And you need that community in order to survive, in order to grow. And we still have that in our brains and in our nervous system. So we naturally want to, and we subconsciously move towards the average of the group that we spend time with. Now, the good thing about knowing this is that we can consciously choose who we want to spend our time with, all right? Now, this doesn't always necessarily mean being person to person, because if you're in a situation where you're like, I'm going to talk about me because that's all I know, is I am moving towards things that I want. I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm developing, I want better things than what I've got in my life right now. So I'm choosing consciously to spend as much time as I can with people who have already got to where I want to be, all right? Now, how are you doing that, Brandon? Well, Every time I make it, it gets better. I'm doing that through audiobooks. I'm doing it through who I follow on Instagram, who I subscribe to on YouTube, podcasts. Now, there's two ways that you can look at podcasts. One is for entertainment and just chilling. One is for learning / getting around these types of people who you want to become, okay? Now, in that element or that dimension of the growing, learning, and being around the types of people that you want to become or hang around with, is you've got the host and you've got the person being interviewed, generally speaking. And I think that it's really good in that to find a couple of people who you like the way that they ask questions. You are interested in the way that they are interested in stuff. You find the way that they think. You're curious about it. So you get to be around them and experience what it's like to be in their head. And that is invaluable. Like, if you could go back and be a fly on the wall when Elon Musk was making PayPal with the PayPal Mafia, if you could be a fly on the wall on seeing how Google was first spitballed and how the ideas were coming across, how Amazon was, when Jeff Bezos was packing books and he just had this mindset of it's going to grow, it's going to grow, it's going to grow. And I think that understanding that being around someone when they're doing their work, podcast is a kind of work now, that is some of the most essential stuff to expose yourself to. And then you've obviously got the people that they have on their podcasts, and just seeing how people's perspectives are, what they do as their routine, or the fact that they don't have a routine, and all of the small nuances that you get from long form content. It's not like someone's written a book and it's edited and it's drafted and it's like very clean, it's very precise, it's been thought about, somebody else has read it and then somebody else has read it and then somebody else has read it, and they've tailored it to be as exact. They're trying to convey a message or tell a story or give examples or sell, a method. It's very orchestrated by design. It has to be, because if not, the book would be endless. Whereas that's the thing with a long form podcast, is you get to actually see how somebody ticks, like you would if you were having a normal social interaction with them. Let me just turn notifications off while I'm doing this. And I think that's why it's really important to use podcasts and audiobooks a little bit if you want a specific answer, or you want to research a topic, or you're interested in, one industry kind of thing. But in terms of spending time with people and generally picking up on the way that they work, their preferences, their insights, their ideas, long form podcasts are just absolutely amazing. And it's free. You can go onto YouTube and pretty much listen to any podcast on the planet for free. I don't think people understand the amount of contacts you would need to have, and then the amount of resources that you would need to be able to first get in touch with somebody, then actually have them say yes to spending time with you, and then you probably wouldn't know what to ask them, So I just feel like podcasting is one of the most easy access ways to get such a large amount of contact time. And then I think the other really important thing is don't limit yourself to a specific topic or a specific type of person, or the business people or the fitness people or the health people or the mindset people, or the emotional health people or the spiritual, kind of bigger picture kind of people, because you will start to get stuck in subconscious beliefs. You don't always need to listen to the business person about business stuff. Sometimes you'll pick up something that resonates with you really deeply on business from somebody who's talking about business for 5 minutes, but on a fitness podcast. Because actually maybe this person sees the world in the way that you relate to right now more than this person. And just because this person's into business and this person has a fitness business doesn't necessarily mean that this person can't give you an insight into business, you know? And I think that that's something else that I wanted to touch on. Let me just really quickly double check my notes. What was that? Groups of people. Variety of people. Don't let subconscious bias to anyone who's really bit. Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say, so I'm not going to repeat myself on that. I think the other sort of side of this that I want to go into is real world. All right, so I've talked about like podcasts, introducing yourself to new ideas and the difference between a host and their interviewee kind of thing, whatever you want to say. Is like take the other side of it and start to like introduce yourself to people, like have conversations with people, network, just find an excuse to start like talking with people, and generally get used to the fact of if you are wanting to improve, if you're wanting to get a better social group, or you're wanting to, you know, have better inputs into your life through other people, you know, you want to get around better people to grow, then at some point you are going to have to start introducing yourself to these better, you know, further along down the path, more educated, more experienced, slightly older, whatever you want to use, people in the world. And I think that there is going to be a little bit of like imposter syndrome, and there's going to be maybe potential a little bit of like anxiety and not knowing what to say and feeling a little bit nervous as to like, what do I have to offer this person? And I think that it's ultimately remembering that as you grow, as you learn, as you get experience, as you figure out who you are, and you have exposed yourself to like, oh, this is quite a good question to ask people, and you know, this is a really nice way to move from one conversation to another conversation through listening to podcasts, reading books, having conversations. You become more beneficial, you become more useful, you become a better person to communicate with. And the only way that you're going to realize that you're improving is to actually go out and communicate and interact and talk and play with people. You know, I've started doing this thing over the past couple of weeks where I will find a reason to talk to somebody when it's an opportunity that's worth taking. So I was in the sauna this morning. There was a couple of people in the sauna. I was doing a little bit of a stretch, and this woman started doing a little bit of a stretch. So I was like, oh, now I've got an excuse to just create this organic potential conversation. So I just said, you know, it'd be really good if there was a little bit more space in here so that people could actually stretch, wouldn't it? And she was like, oh yeah, you know, I've thought about that, and I've been to this sauna once. And then we just started having a conversation about stretching and sauna and hydration and nutrition and the difference between doing it in the morning and the afternoon. And like, it didn't feel forced because I look for opportunities where having a conversation is very natural and there's actually something to have a conversation about. So I think that realizing that you can play and you can learn how to do it through going through the process, and don't be worried about if it's like sometimes a little bit awkward or you don't quite know what to say, or you know, if you're someone that doesn't naturally communicate really well, I think it's really important to remember that as long as you've got good intent and you are asking open questions like, you know, how, where, what, why, and when. Normally, if you start a question with those type of words, and you're curious, and again, there's actually a potential conversation there to be had rather than just, you know, sitting randomly at the bus stop and I don't know what would be a really bad example, just like commenting on something, you know, sat there in silence with someone and being like, oh, weather's terrible today, isn't it? That's a horrendous way to start a conversation. But if someone's wearing like some trainers that are really cool and you actually like the trainers, being like, oh, yo, your trainers are really cool. How did you come about having those? You know, not where did you buy them? Because that's like, oh, the shop. Or, you know, how long have you had them? That's a bit of a weird question. Whereas if you say, how did you come about getting those trainers? That could be like, oh, well, my parents bought them me, or my brother got them me, or there was a sale that I went to, or there's this really cool vintage store round the corner, actually. And I don't know if you've ever been in. Oh, actually, yeah, I have been there. And one of my friends works there. And, oh, that's the guy. And, you know, it's the way that you approach it. It's the intent that you have. It's being conscious to the way that you discuss and ask and question and play. And people can pick up on your energy, you know? So I think that there's a couple of bits to it, but I think it's really, it comes down to like learning yourself, knowing where you are, knowing the type of people that you want as an idea, and then start to expose yourself to those people online so that you can actually like listen to people that are like 50 steps above you in the way that you want to move towards. And then naturally just start to practice having conversations with people, because that is the way that you start to expand your social group. Like one of my good friends, we happened to randomly start talking in the gym one day about exercise, and then the next time we saw each other, we talked a little bit about this and nuances, and then after we'd done that a few times, we started training together, and then we went out for a hike and we talked about business and mindset and relationships and goals, and now we're good friends. But we would have never created a friendship if we hadn't have just started with that excuse of a conversation to talk about something that was contextually appropriate to the environment that we met, you know? Like being in a coffee shop, and, you know, if it's the first time you've been in there and there's somebody that's, I don't know, somebody that's really attractive, and you want to start and talk to more attractive people because you want to grow in that way, then if there's an attractive person in there and you've never been in the coffee shop before, saying, yo, what would you recommend? I've never been here before. And if they're, you know, an interested, playful, they kind of find you attractive, there's a reason to start and have a conversation, and then you might be like, oh, do you actually want to come and sit down after you've got your coffee? And you never know where it's going to go. So I think being open-minded, being playful, having an idea of where you want to move to, having the right intent, being curious, and remembering that the average of the people that you spend the most of the time with is where you're going to move to. So being conscious of that, being selective of that, you will start to move in the right direction. There's going to be a little bit of a gap between where you are now and where you want to be. Could be a little bit lonely, a little bit quiet in the middle, but I think that you just have to embrace that in the fact of knowing that you are moving towards something that's bigger than where you are now. All right, so peace and love. I'm going to drink the rest of this and go do a 10-hour shift. All right, peace, guys.